Art of Anarchy was intended to be a hard rock supergroup, originally enlisting late Stone Temple Pilots vocalist Scott Weiland, who abruptly left the band and they sued him for $20 million. The band then enlisted Scott Stapp, the Creed vocalist, to join the band, and unfortunately, that also didn't go well. And in a new interview, Disturbed bassist John Moyer, who's also in Art of Anarchy, spoke pretty candidly about his experience working with Scott Stapp. Before we continue, YouTube tells us we have a lot of returning viewers, and most of you have not yet subscribed. If you could take just a quick second to hit that subscribe button, we would really appreciate it. When late Stone Temple Pilots frontman Scott Weiland joined Art of Anarchy, he reportedly was paid over $230,000 to contribute to the album and properly promote it. But he went on to leave the group, and he was sued for $20 million. He publicly called the band a scam. But the following year, Art of Anarchy went back to the drawing board, this time signing up Scott Stapp of Creed to be their frontman. Stapp did end up releasing an album with the band, but only played a few shows. He abruptly exited, and the band filed a $1.2 million lawsuit against him, accusing him of breaching contract. And now, in a new appearance on the Talk Louder podcast, Disturbed bassist John Moyer, who of course is also a member of Art of Anarchy, spoke about his experience working with Scott Stapp. I've linked to this podcast in the description. He told them, and then for some reason we decided to make an album with another Scott. We did it with Scott Stapp from Creed. On this record I did a lot more writing. The record's called The Madness. That was a tough record to make. A lot of sitting in the jam room with Scott and Bumble and the whole band just trying to get everybody on the same page. I was in a super creative zone at that point, so I brought in a ton of songs. I probably wrote half the record. It was good. It was difficult working with Stapp because you just don't know which Scott you're going to get. Like some days you're going to get creative Stapp, and some days you're going to get the Stapp who just wants to sit in the corner and say everything sucks. He was kind of moody and was only into it so much. It was very frustrating. It was like dragging an elephant uphill sometimes. I don't mind saying this because it turned into an entire shit show. He was supposed to we signed to a label again. I think he had promised to do 90 shows with us. He did 6, then bailed. That was all in the contract, and I can talk about this because we are in a dispute with him legally. That's already been around, so I'm not letting the cat out of the bag saying anything that hasn't already been told in the press years ago. It's been years, but we're getting to the end of that dispute. It's frustrating because when you get into a band, you trust people. I want to say it's like a marriage, but it's a relationship. And when somebody's in that relationship and they're not being truthful and they're under false reasons and they're already planning an exit plan, you're buying the house and they're trying to figure out a way to ditch you. It hurts. I'm a trusting person. I'm not going to say I'm naive, but I refuse to get hardened. The music industry will break your heart. There's a reason that Sims Foundation exists because it's not a mentally friendly industry, but I'm not going to allow that to happen to me. I'm not going to allow myself to get hardened by things. So even though the thing with Scott Weiland didn't work out, even though Disturbed was on hiatus, even though I had dealt with losses with Union Underground, a lot of heartbreak, I was still like, all right, Scott Stapp, let's go. Fresh as a daisy and willing to do it, even though he didn't have a great history coming into the camp. He'd just come off this whole thing where he was traveling across the country in the back of a truck, homeless. He's telling us all these stories and he's just back sober, so we're his sober camp. We're supporting him, there is no drinking. What do you need, Scott Stapp, to make this all work? All hands on deck, we believe in you. We want you to be a part of this. You're going to agree to this? Awesome. You put all that into somebody and they turn your back on you, I don't really have a lot of remorse for that. It really hurt my feelings. I don't want to say my feelings. It hurt my soul because I put a lot into this record and he had no intention of touring it. And it's come out now, like so much has come out in the wash that I just can't believe the things that were said that weren't true. So there's that story. I'm going to get in trouble for this. Some lawyer's going to call me and say, you can't bash blah, 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 blah. I'm just telling the truth, man. It sucked. Promises were made. They weren't kept, and I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that to you, Jason. I wouldn't do that to you, David. I wouldn't do that to anybody. How people can go through life and do that and think it's okay because there's somebody is the worst kind of rock star ego I can imagine. John Moyer obviously knows a little bit about the music industry. He is in one of the most successful rock bands of the last 30 years, of course, Disturbed. He's been in the Union Underground. He's also been in this band, Art of Anarchy, so he knows what he's talking about. Sounds like he doesn't feel like he had a very good experience. I'm sure Scott has a whole different perspective on this whole thing, and he's been through his trials and tribulations, but he seems to really be on the upswing these days, and that's just wonderful to hear. He continues to perform solo, and he's also talked about the possibility that we could see a Creed comeback, and other members of Creed have also said that as well. When the time is right, we will likely see a return for Creed. Of course, you can find touring for Disturbed up on their website. They've got some shows coming up this year, and you can also check out Scott Stapp's tour dates on his official website. That's your latest update from Rockfeed. Again, if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button and check out the recommended videos up on your screen.